बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। श्री पिनाकी मिश्रा जी।
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, sir, for calling upon the Biju Janata Dal to speak on the motion of thanks to the Honorable President. Mr. Chairperson, sir, the President's address to the joint session of Parliament is an old and very venerable Westminster-style British democracy legacy that we in India have continued. It always comes very crisply and sharply worded. It's always very glossily packaged. If you see the cover, the paper, it's all very glossy. But at the end of the day, it's the President's address only in name. It's not the President's address ever in substance. I've said this before, that the President's address is always remarkable for what it omits rather than what it mentions. In fact, in reality, it's actually a somewhat, if I may say so with great respect to the Honorable President, an untrustworthy document. Because even though it may not have outright lies printed, it has many half-truths printed. It's what the Latins often say, full of suppressio verae rather than suggestio falsi. So the truth is suppressed while there may not be an outright suggestion of falsehood. In any event, I have to be careful, Mr. Chairman, in my remarks on the President's address and in any outright criticism of the Honorable President's address because of several reasons. She is, of course, a very cherished and a treasured daughter of my state, Odisha. And we are very proud that she is the Honorable President.
It is not about the President. It is only that.
But she is also my Chief Minister's Rakhi sister for the last 2 decades.
That's right.
So therefore, any criticism that I make of her speech here has to be somewhat tempered under the circumstances. So if I know what's good for me, I'll be careful in my dissection of that speech. But the dissection of the speech is the need of the hour. And so let me quickly get down to some of the talking points that have been mentioned and how there are some half-truths in what has been mentioned. The entire truth has not come out in the document that the Honorable President read out to both Houses of Parliament. The Honorable President has talked about women empowerment at length in paragraphs 2, paragraph 6, paragraph 30, paragraph 33. The Honorable President has talked about how in Amrit Kal it is envisaged that women would be given their due in society in India finally. I'm vastly disappointed, and so is my Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik, who has repeatedly written to the central government, written to the Prime Minister, that the Women's Reservation Bill, which has been lying in cold storage for the past more than a decade, has still found no mention in the Honorable President's address, which means that the government is in absolutely no frame of mind or in no mood at all to bring the Women's Reservation Bill to reality and give the women of this country 1/3 reservation in the bare minimum, even though they are 50% and more in number. At least 1/3 reservation for women is a must. My Chief Minister, Naveen Patnaik, has put his money where his mouth is. We have 21 Lok Sabha seats. He gave tickets to 7 women MPs out of the women MP candidates out of 21. And 5 of them won. So we have actually the highest number in terms of ratio. 45% of our MP strength here, 5 out of 12 are women MPs. So we have the highest ratio in the Lok Sabha today. So therefore, at least my Chief Minister has put his money where his mouth is. But we are very, very deeply unhappy that the issue of the Women's Reservation Bill does not find mention in the Honorable President's address. And we were hoping that a lady president now would be able to persuade this government to adopt the right course and at the soonest, at least before this 17th Parliament gets over, that we find for the 18th Parliament at least, there should be a much larger number of our women MPs in this House, which would be a more, I think, a better representation of what India really is. The President's address has talked about problems of the poor. I'm not able to understand how anybody can wax eloquent about problems of the poor when immediately a day later in the budget which was presented, the allocation for Mahatma Gandhi Narega has been scaled down to 60,000 crores. We have seen how important Narega was during the time of COVID. We've seen how it has served the poor people of this country. So therefore, if there is going to be some lip service, at least, to the poor of this country, I think the Honorable Finance Minister ought to reconsider this vast scaling down of Narega from, I think, nearly 90,000 crores to 60,000 crores. This is clearly something that we should frown upon in the manner in which the President's speech has been undermined by the budget. The Honorable President has talked about the PM Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana. Some of my colleagues here have mentioned about this. This was again during COVID, a laudable scheme. Everybody supported this. My Chief Minister repeatedly requested the Honorable Prime Minister to keep extending this from time to time. We are grateful that the Honorable Prime Minister acceded to that. But I don't know what has happened now, that suddenly the 10-kilo free rice, which was an absolute need of the hour for the people of this, the poor people of this country, and particularly when millions of tons of rice is being eaten up by rats in very poor storage conditions, why this 10 kilos should be scaled down to 5 kilos, and why we should put this additional burden of 5 kilo per home to be, per person to be bought out of their already impoverished pockets rather than it going waste in public godowns. The reduction of this rice also has a direct impact on the supply in the PDS system, as a result of which the paddy procurement numbers in the budget again have gone down by 20,000 crores. This will have a direct impact again on the farmers of this country, because the less paddy procurement there is, the more the farmers suffer. This again for a government which had grandiosely promised that by 2022 they will double farmers' incomes. This is certainly going nowhere towards doubling farmers' incomes if that was the honest intention of the government. The Honorable President has talked about tribal communities in paragraph 26, has talked about the Bhagwan Birsa Munda anniversary as a Janjatiya Gaurav Divas. We obviously laud this, but I wish the Honorable President had also made mention of the fact that Odisha in Rourkela has now managed to build the world's largest hockey stadium, which is called the Birsa Munda Stadium, where we just held the World Cup hockey for the second time running, 2018 and now 2023. And this has been now acknowledged by the Guinness Book of World Records. It's a part of the Guinness Book of World Records that this is the world's largest hockey stadium. So if anybody has given due service and to the memory of the late Shri Birsa Mundaji, who's treated virtually like God in Western Odisha, then it has been Shri Naveen Patnaik. So therefore, while the Honorable President, who herself comes from the tribal community, has been an extraordinary example of how much the tribals have, if they, when they are given the right opportunities, of how far they can go, how high they can rise. She's an outstanding, shining example of that. And therefore, we appeal to her that in Odisha, there are 169 tribes which are still left out of the pale of ST status. The Honorable Chief Minister keeps writing to the central government. We have, in the last session, in the winter session, they brought in 4 bills for Tamil Nadu, for Jammu and Kashmir, for all over the country, but not for Odisha. We can't understand why there is this kind of apathy being shown to Odisha. Now, medical colleges, somebody has already mentioned that medical college, I think my colleague from the TMC mentioned that this appears to be an overhyped thing. Again, as I said, some half-truths do creep into these documents, and this is clearly a half-truth, because when they say that every district a medical college has been opened or will be opened, we don't know, but it says more than 260 medical colleges have been opened from 14 to 22. We know this for a fact that most of these are ill-equipped. They are not fully equipped yet. Most of these, when there is a proper audit done, when there is a proper inquiry done, they find that the quality of education which is being imparted is far from par. The infrastructure there also is not at all up to the mark. So therefore, this is something again which appears to be a half-truth. On pharmacy, it says India has made its new identity as the pharmacy of the world. I think I have 20 minutes.
No, I'm
so sorry. So as India as the new pharmacy of the world is again, we know that the COVID vaccine was a great success. Full marks to our scientists, full marks to our industry, which rose to the occasion. But has to be a caveat again, because the deaths which have been reported in Gambia, in Uzbekistan, from imports of Indian pharmaceutical goods, is where children have died in large numbers. This is again something which is clearly shows that a great deal of audit is required in this country before we can claim ourselves to be the pharmacy of the world. So perhaps the pharmacy of the world, sobriquet, may not be so easily, it should not sit so easily on our heads. As far as gas connections is concerned, more than 55,000 gas connections every day as per the Honorable President's address. Now this again I find is clearly an exaggeration, because for assessing the utility of gas connections provided, I think it was very essential to also consider how many people refill the cylinders provided initially. All of us members in this House are privy to the fact. And in fact, in response to an RTI query in 2022, public sector companies actually informed this House that around 8.9 crore connections have been issued under the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana. Of those, 90 lakhs did not refill even a single cylinder. And 1.08 crores only managed to get one refill in the entire year. So therefore, this again appears to be a hype number. I think Petroleum Minister Mr. Dharmendra Pradhan, as has now come to light, was very busy helping Mr. Adani put up a very large LNG terminal in Dhamra, and therefore could not pay enough attention, I think, to the problems that housewives face. I would expect Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri, who now currently holds charge, and again is a very, very dynamic minister, has always been in the forefront of leading the charge as far as his ministerial responsibilities are concerned, that he will do a better job in this field. It's not all criticism of the government. May I shower my little praise on the government as well, which is well merited. In the mines and minerals sector, as far as the reforms and auction policy is concerned, the central government, led by the Prime Minister, have definitely, I think, and Mr. Prahlad Joshi, who is not here, the Mines Minister, have definitely helped states like Orissa, states like Jharkhand, which are mineral resource rich states. The auction policy has worked beautifully. Mr. Naveen Patnaik was the first one who actually mooted that policy, and the auction policy has brought in massive rewards in terms of higher royalties, in terms of rationalization of prices. Of course, there are still pinpricks. Unfortunately, the bureaucracy in this country is virtually in nobody's control, it appears. Because all of a sudden we found that there was a 50% imposition of export tax on fines, which nobody could understand why it was done. Nobody in their right mind should have done this. This went on for about 6 months. We were very grateful to, again, Shri Jyotiraditya Scindia, who, on behalf of the steel industry, actually said that the rational thing to do is do not insist on this cess, because nobody uses fines in India. So it doesn't help the steel industry. All it does is creates an ecological, environmental disaster. And Mr. Prahlad Joshi again backed him. Mr. Amit Shah and Mr. Prime Minister backed them. So therefore, this completely unnecessary and idiotic, may I say, duty was done away with, but not before the country lost hundreds and thousands of crores by way of export earnings. So this is the way, the Byzantine way that sometimes bureaucracy in this country works. And I think the Prime Minister and his cabinet will do well to keep a closer watch and a tighter scrutiny of the manner in which the bureaucracy, because as the French say, more things change, more they remain the same. It's the greatest truism for the Indian bureaucracy, that the more things change, more they remain the same. Air connectivity in Orissa is again something that we are very grateful that Shri Scindia ji has started the new Rourkela airport immediately for the World Cup. We are now getting the Bhubaneswar, Dubai, Bangkok, Singapore, which the Honorable Chief Minister had committed during his trip. So this again is something where we are very, very grateful to the central government. We should have actually found mention that air connectivity is one of those areas where the government has done well. Puri International Airport clearly is the need of the hour. The Chief Minister has mooted the project. The central government has sent their teams. They have done the inspections. So therefore, all in all, I would again like to repeat in my closing remarks, Honorable Chairperson, that while I thank you for allowing me to speak on this subject, I would commend the government that while good things have happened, there is no question, but a lot needs to be done. You know, as the old Robert Frost poem, I think, which has been spoken so many times in this house, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep. And certainly miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So this government really has miles to go before they sleep. They've been in power now for 8 years. So it's a long enough period, 8.5 actually, close to 9 years now. So harking back all the time to pre-2014, and the finance minister's speech is a classic example of how every third sentence is pre-2014. Perhaps the time has come to lay those ghosts to rest. I think the time has come to actually now look at your own track record and look at what you've been able to achieve. I once again thank the Honourable President for her speech to both Houses of Parliament, and needless to say, we support the Honourable President's speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next speaker, Sri Pratap Rao Jadhav ji.